Hello guys, today I will play chess and chess I'm playing at now is the Italian game, so let's start with my pawn to e4 and then I move my bishop to c4 and I move my knight to f3 and I move my knight come to g5 and then I move my knight to capture their pawn. And now I capture the queen. So I go my queen to g4 and I capture their pawn at d5. So now I come my pawn to f3 and I move my knight to c3 then I move my my bishop to capture their pawn. And I move my bishop back to d5. And I move my bishop to capture their knight. Then I move my rook to f1. And I move my pawn to g3. So I move my knight to capture their bishop. And I move my knight. I move my rook to f2. So I capture their point by my point. And I move my rook to h2. And now I capture their bishop. And now I'm making my knight to check the king. So I move my bishop, my knight to capture their pawn. So I make check again. So I move my my knight to e5 and now it's check. And I move my rook to h8 and now it's check. Then I move my rook back to h6 and I move my rook to capture their knight. And I move my rook to d6 and now it's check. And I move my knight to c4 and then I move my knight to a5. So I move my knight to c6 and now it's check. So I move my knight back to a5 and I move my knight to c6. So I move my pawn to e5. So I move my rook to f6. So I move my pawn to f4. So I move my king to f2. So I move my knight to e4. So I move my king to f3. And then I move my rook to f7 and now it's check. So I move my rook to capture the pawn. So I move my king to f4. And now I capture their pawn. And now I capture their rooks. And I capture the pawn. So I move my bishop to e1. And I move my rook to e1. So I move my rook to e3. And I move my rook to h3. And I move my rook to h6. And I move my rook to e6. And now I move my rook to 3-6. Now it's check. And now I move my pawn to e6. And I move my pawn to e7. And also I move my king to e5. And now my pawn go to e8 and I get the queen. So at now I use my queen to capture their rook. Now let's check. So I move my rook to a8. Thank you for watching my gameplay. See you next time.